So we're back. The mystery of the Bennington Triangle does continue, and disappearances are not the only thing to be afraid of. More mystery, more monsters, and more missing persons. Stories of the Bennington Triangle, aka the Appalachian Trail Zone of Death. This is part 2. Hey.
What's that? Eagerly awaiting this episode. Forget any intro. I'm ready.
Well, I have a ghost story for you first.
Oh, okay.
And will you introduce us?
Oh, yeah. Of course. This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
2 girls, 1 ghost. We are your ghostesses. That is Corinne.
Hello.
I'm Sabrina. And I just want to start with one little pleasant thing. My meds are hitting just right today. And I woke up and I was like, oh, I see in Technicolor. It was like Wizard of Oz. Truly, I woke up and I was like, Claritin commercial.
See ghosts now too?
I did have a paranormal experience, but that was when I was in the darkness.
Oh, okay. So who knows what the meds will bring?
It's like such a little thing, but I was in my house, and this was last night, and I was having a conversation. My friend Madison was over, and we were just talking, and I truly had this like sound atmospheric shift. And it was almost as if like what I was talking about, I shouldn't be talking about anymore in that place. And I was sitting like this facing her, and like we were on a couch, and the opening of the couch is this way. So,
Were you
like,
in your house?
in my house, yeah. So the back of the couch is here. I'm facing her. And from my left through my head to my right, there was like a big ringing and atmospheric shift. And I just said, okay, I'll stop. Like I just knew that that's what they wanted me to do.
Was it something personal, or was it something that like could pertain to?
It was personal.
Interesting.
Yeah. Or it was like you're on the right track. I don't really know.
No, it's hard to decipher these things.
Yeah.
I do think about your hair crying daily, like actually daily.
Yeah.
Something's happening to
I
you,
thought about
Sabrina.
it earlier today too.
We're all witness now to like, I feel like your psychic journey has been wild over the past few years.
Because I went through shit. And something within me woke up. Anyway, we have more to talk about with the Bennington Triangle, aka
massive cliffhanger.
Appalachia's Zone of Death. This is part 2. So we're back with mystery, more monsters, and more missing persons. Stories of the Bennington Triangle, aka the Appalachian Trail Zone of Death.
And in Vermont. Ooh. Leaf peepers, don't get lost. You might disappear on the mountaintop.
And some weird things might happen to you. You made a really good pot of coffee today. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
You did good.
I was making it way too strong, and Sabrina wouldn't drink my coffee, so now I make it more appropriately.
Yeah, I held it, but I didn't really drink it.
Yes, that's correct. And then my mom had a talking to with me.
Also, I was feeling spicy. Hot. Sorry if you see my nipples, I'm going to cover them. Okay, back to the Bennington Triangle. Last week, we discussed the 9 mysterious disappearances between 1945 and 1950 that led New England author Joseph A. Citro to nickname this mysterious area the Bennington Triangle. And Joseph A. Citro has so many books if you want to read any of them. I read one that had a couple little stories about the Bennington Triangle, but it also had like Emily's Bridge and all of the classic Vermont haunts. So today we will explore what those missing people may have endured being lost in the wilderness before disappearing for eternity, with a story that proves that the area bends time and space. And then we will venture into some horrifying tales from the trails, monsters, murder, aliens, and ghosts. But first, let's recap. The Bennington Triangle is a patch of land in southern Vermont where the wilderness is watching, where an ancient mountain looms silently, time bends, compasses spin, and where people vanish without a trace. The heart of this area is the ancient Glastenbury Mountain that has long been believed to be cursed. Since early times, there have been stories of strange lights, mysterious sounds, shadows amongst the trees, unknown creatures, and curses. The native tribe cautioned people from the area because they believed that this is where the wind met in 4 directions on the mountains. So like from all 4 directions, it just like collided on the mountaintop. So they warned of something ominous. They stated that they would stay off the mountain except to bury their dead. In part 1, I shared the tragic stories of 6 people who mysteriously disappeared in the woods, which might be closer to 9 people. And I teased that one man survived to tell the tale.
Mm-hmm.
That man's name is Robert Singley. 62 years after Paula Weldon's disappearance in 1945. And Paula Weldon is kind of the marker disappearance from this area because her disappearance was so globally talked about and it led to the formation of the state police.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple disappearances before her, but she's kind of the one that everyone refers back to.
Okay.
62 years after Paula's disappearance, 27-year-old Robert Singley disappeared in the exact same place. Robert Singley, 27, was a Bennington College music composition teacher who had spent a lot of time out in the wilderness and amongst the Bennington nature. Around noon on Sunday, September 28th of 2008, Robert Singley kissed his fiancée goodbye and told her that he was going on a hike and would be back around 5 p.m. He had done many hikes in this area. He had done this hike before, so he knew how much time it would take and was pretty certain that's what time he would be back. And now if you want to watch on YouTube or look at some photos, I did map out everything on Google Maps and I put markers, and there will be a couple photos we use as reference through this episode. So Robert drove his car and parked off of Harbor Road in Woodford Hollow. And remember, Harbor Road is the exact same road that Paula Weldon was last seen walking along Long Trail.
Oh.
So he parked there right along the Long Trail and planned to follow a 5-mile hike that he had previously done. He hiked about 3 miles, reaching the top of Bald Mountain, stopped and enjoyed the view and his lunch that he had packed for the hike. And I guess he was feeling really stuck with some music that he was trying to compose at the time. So he liked to go up to this mountain and hike and just let the music compose in his head. So he's enjoying the view. He's walking along the ridge of Bald Mountain, and I have a picture of the view.
So beautiful.
It's a beautiful day, clear skies, and a slight chill, but it's refreshing at this time, especially when you're exerting energy going up a mountain. He finishes his lunch. He views the White Rocks to the west. He looks towards Glastenbury Mountain, which is towards the north. And then he heads back down the trail he came up. Again, the same trail. He recognizes it. He sees all the same markers that he saw on his way up. Mm-hmm. He knows he is on the same trail. He had hiked up probably 3 miles from his car. So he was like, this will probably take me no more than an hour to go down, probably less, because going downhill, he felt confident he could go faster. 10 minutes go by. All is normal. He recognizes the trail. 20 minutes goes by. Still nothing unusual. He's actually hearing the composition of this music in his head. It's sounding good. He's like, oh my gosh, this did exactly what I wanted it to do. I'm having a breakthrough. Now 30 minutes goes by, and I like to imagine that the music that he's composing in his head starts to turn a little bit skewed, not so happy anymore.
Minor key.
Mm-hmm. Something goes flat. He's like, something feels a little off, but it still seems like the trail, I'm on the right way. And now he's 45 minutes down the trail, and he's like, I feel like I should be getting closer to the edge, and I should be getting closer to my car. But he keeps walking. And now an hour has passed. And he's like, I've definitely hiked more than 3 miles down. He's like, I feel like I've hiked 4 or 5 miles now at this point. And he's super confused. Now an hour and 10 minutes passes. And he's like, something is wrong. He felt something shift in the atmosphere. He realizes he's still nowhere near his car, which is impossible given
that he's descending the mountain, right?
Yes.
Which it would be totally one thing if you were going up and it's just you're exerting yourself way more, right, and you're just frustrated with the physical journey up. But going down?
Yeah. So he's getting confused. And now more time is passing. The notes in his head are getting dark and ominous. The atmosphere is shifting and Robert is getting uneasy. He knew something was wrong. He knew he should have returned to his car by now. And his car and the trailhead were nowhere in sight. He was so certain he had followed the path correctly. And as he's trying to work out where he was, something strange happened. He said, and this is in a quote, everything around me crescendoed, almost like the atmosphere blurred and electricity had surged. That was weird, he thought. But he kept walking, thinking his mind is probably playing tricks on him. Despite the heavy atmosphere, Singley tried to ignore the odd sensation. But then the sun began to set, and as it set, he knew something was very, very wrong. He was lost, and he had no idea how it had happened. So he decides to stop where he is because he's like, I'm clearly lost, and I feel like if I keep walking and aimlessly going in this direction, I'm going to get even more lost. So he stops, and he decides he's going to make a plan. Night is beginning to fall, and immediately a thick fog rolls in. So thick that he can no longer see. He had a headlamp in his backpack, so he opens his backpack and he takes out his headlamp. It does not turn on. No matter what he does, it will not turn on.
This is so scary, and it's reminding me of Stranger Things, like that he accidentally went into the upside down.
Right. And if you remember from part 1, there's this belief that the natives had that there was a man-eating stone in this region, that if you stepped upon it, basically fall into another dimension and be swallowed up by this portal. So this fog is so thick, his headlamp doesn't work. He cannot see. His mind is racing. Anxiety is crawling through his nervous system, like choking him, suffocating him. He is lost with no compass, no phone, no map, and a broken headlamp. He is lost in the Appalachia wilderness in the Bennington Triangle, a place known to swallow people up, and night was upon him. And I did some research to find out what's the moon like on this night. I found on September 28th, 2008, the moon was a waning crescent with 0% illumination. 0%.
Oh, I'm so curious about everybody else now, too. If all the other disappearances, if there's something
similar to like the night and the moon. Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
We could probably
But
look.
either way, like the fact that he's stuck in complete darkness.
Yes.
And it makes me curious about this other sort of dimension that he was sucked into. Does the temperature shift the same way that it does?
Yeah, I don't know.
On planet Earth? Or like, basically, is it getting colder? Is he going to survive the night? Or is there this weird sort of like...
I mean, regardless of if it was a different dimension or not, like it's late September in Vermont. It's getting cold.
Yeah.
All he had were the clothes on his back, but he did have like mittens and a hat, which thank goodness he had that. But like he didn't have winter gear or gear that you could sleep in the mountains at night. So it's 0% illumination. He's lost in the dense woods, cradled by a thick fog on a basically moonless night. And it was nearly pitch black. The air grew colder and damper. All he had were a few seemingly unhelpful objects in his backpack, a notebook, a broken headlamp, and very little water. So now it's around this time that Singley's fiance is very, very concerned. She's back home and she calls the police because when Robert didn't come home at 5, she was like, okay, maybe he's just taking a little bit longer. He'll be back like in no time. 8 p.m. rolls around and she's like starting to panic and she's calling people around the campus, asking if anyone's seen him. No one's seen him. By 10 p.m., she calls the local police and is like, I'm very concerned. So I think around 10:30, 11 p.m., local police go to the location that he had told his fiance he was going hiking, and they find his car at the trailhead. Still parked there. Clearly, he has not come back to his car. But this fog is so thick that even with their police flashlights, they can't see more than 2 feet in front of them.
Okay, so at least the fog existed
everywhere.
Because it would be, I would want to vomit if he was in this like dark, foggy spot and it's like 10 a.m. and sunny.
Right.
Outside of this weird portal.
Right. But it's almost like the forest and the woods were like, we're not going to let anyone look for you because the police, they're like, this is dangerous. We can't go out here in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get lost. We're going to be in danger.
Right.
So they are at the head of the trail. They're going up a little bit as far as they can. They're calling out to Robert. No response. And they're like, ultimately, there's nothing we can do tonight. The conditions are not good for us to go out there. We will come back as soon as we can in the morning and bring canines and do a full search. So they're basically like leaving Robert alone in the woods because they had to. He is truly alone.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And instead of trying to find his way out in the dark fog, which I think is the smartest move, which reminds me of the book we've been reading, The God of the Woods.
I was just thinking that too because I was thinking about all the tips to like survive the night and conserve your body heat. It's like, I hope he knows those.
In the book, like the first rule of this camp is if you get lost, sit where you are and just scream for help. Do not try to find your own way out.
Which is like, yes, it's a rule in the book, but it's also just a rule in wilderness survival.
Yeah.
if you realize you're off trail and you're only a mile away, you have a lot better chance of being found than if you keep searching and then suddenly you are like 8 miles away from the trailhead.
So Robert basically is like, I'm spending the night in the woods. And he stops, hunkers down where he is, and he starts to like search for some sort of cover. And again, he is unable to see anything. So all he could do was go off instinct. And something told him to move towards a direction. He said, I was kind of like drawn to it in the night. It was a really expelling and weird sort of, I don't know, a weird haunting energy, whatever that means. And he was drawn towards a tree. Like his instincts and like something in his head led him to a tree, which offered him coverage in the night.
It was the tree talking. I believe
it too. So it was there that he found a large tree and he felt protected by it, whatever the energy was, if it was the tree calling to him to keep him safe, which I love that there are these like multiple forces at work here in this forest, that it's like some are trying to protect you and then something else is trying to draw you deeper. Okay, so now he's underneath this tree. It's dark. It's getting cold. He's trying to sleep, but he cannot. His clothes were getting wet. He's shivering. He's so cold. So he's like, I need to build a fire. And he is blindly searching the ground for any type of kindling, anything that he can use to start this fire. Mm-hmm. And this part creeps me the fuck out because keep in mind, he had been in this area during daylight hours. So he had seen where he stopped before he stopped there because he realized he was getting lost. He realized the sun was setting, so he stayed where he was. He examined this area enough. He would have known if there was what he's about to find there during the day.
Uh-oh.
He's searching around looking for firewood, and he keeps coming across bones.
Fuck no.
Yeah, bones.
Oh my God, I hate this. Now I don't trust the tree.
I don't trust the woods.
Right? Like, it's all summoning. Is this like where it eats? This is where it feeds?
Ew, and it like spits out. Ugh. I like the tree. I trust the tree. I trust the tree. I don't trust the woods.
I don't know. This is so weird.
But also, it's one of those, you know, those like sensory deprivation box where you put your hands in, you have to feel. Yeah. Like, could you imagine feeling bones? Horrifying.
The fact that he's even rummaging, like, the fact that he's even like, oh my gosh, I need to make a fire, and he's rummaging around in the darkest of dark.
I mean, what else do you do?
I don't know. Yeah. Like, dig in the ground and try to bury yourself in there in a fetal position and survive the night.
So he finds some wood after parsing through bones. So finally, he finds enough scraps of wood to start a fire, and he uses pages from his notebook as well to light the fire. And there he sat by his tiny fire in some creepy, ominous graveyard of mysterious bones and waited for morning to come. With each hour that passed came a deeper fear and the sinking feeling that his life might end. He became ever more aware of his mortality and that despite being out there alone, he felt like something or someone was watching him. Every time a twig snapped, he thought, this is it. The woods will take me now. Every sound reminded him that he was prey, being hunted.
This is exactly what I was thinking of because I'm going to tell a story of my dad's, who's a hunter, really quick. And this wasn't in Vermont. I believe it was in Pennsylvania. But it goes against what scientists say. But a lot of hunters have seen this. A black panther. So basically like a black mountain lion. And scientists are like, no, those don't exist up here. But my dad saw with his own eyes, and other people who hunt in the area are also seeing, like, over many, many years of continuing to go to the same spot every hunting season, one of the most dangerous predators that is said to not be there.
Super unsettling.
And yet, there it is.
It's very unsettling. Mm-hmm. I actually found a TikTok. I love the trend that's happening right now where it's like, everyone tell me your like scariest encounter you've ever had.
I'm not talking about a random knock on the door or like a ghost at the foot of your bed. I'm talking about,
So I found one and I sent it to myself and I wanted to like pull some things to read in a future episode, but it's all about like hunters and people who work in the woods.
Wait, I saved the same one.
Yeah.
I was disturbed at how many people said that they saw themselves.
Yes. One person literally said that they were out on a job when their trail cams at their home showed him on the camera.
Yes.
That freaks me the fuck out.
I saved the exact same one because I was like, this is so fucked.
So fucked up. Okay, but back to Robert. So Robert is sitting by this fire and he's like praying, hoping, busying his mind in any way that he possibly can to try to survive the night and make it to morning. He does. Finally, the sun begins to rise. He can finally see around him. I couldn't find anything about like, did he see the bones again or what?
Yeah.
But he basically was like, the sun is up. I need to find my way out. So he gets to his feet and begins searching for his escape. And within minutes of navigating through the woods again, he feels even more disoriented because nothing looked familiar. Keep in mind, he had hiked this area twice, supposedly yesterday. But when he wakes up, like it looks so different. He's so confused. He's like, this is not where I was yesterday. I don't know where I am.
Which is so bizarre too, because like the fog was happening everywhere. He clearly found himself in this weird spot. And I would understand like the forest tricking him and disorienting him and moving paths the way that we hear about people who are driving on a road and suddenly it looks all different and bent, lost time, whatever. Yeah. But it is weird that it would somehow switch. Like I thought that it was just going to move him somewhere different and he'd have to find his way back in the morning.
Well, so
but for it to be completely different is bizarre.
Yeah. So then he finds a sign that rattles him because this sign states that he was near Goddard's shelter, which was close to the peak of Glastenbury Mountain. And keep in mind, yesterday, the day before when he was at the top of the mountain, he is seeing Glastenbury Mountain to the north from the view he was at Bald Mountain. So he is now some 6 or 7 miles away from his car.
And wasn't he walking downhill most of the time?
So the only way he could have gotten to where he was that morning is if he had gone down the trail, walked past his car, and like gone a different direction to go back up to Glastenbury Mountain. And I have a map, so I'll show you. His car is parked right there where the little car is. Then he hiked up to where the red pin is. He ate lunch there. He swears he hiked back down towards his car following the same trail, but somehow he ended up all the way over here at Goddard's shelter. I was trying to look at the trail map itself.
Yeah.
And I think there is a possibility that he had gone down a different trail from the top of Bald Mountain that led him towards Goddard's shelter. But he's like, I remember walking down the same trail I had walked up. He has enough knowledge in the wilderness that he recognized it. And
yes. And well, to play devil's advocate, I do think it's really easy to be disoriented. And the amount of times I've hiked up this tiny little mountain in Vermont that's like basically a hill called Mount Philo and gotten confused on like which of the 2 paths to take back down is an embarrassing number.
Yeah.
But at the same time, his recollection is hiking down. You don't get back up to the peak of a mountain hiking downhill.
And I've never been there and I don't have like, there's not really a Google Maps for or like a person location version for trails. Like you can walk streets, but you can't really walk trails on Google Maps. Yeah. So that like it's hard for me to know for certain.
Ooh, we should look at Strava. Because when people do, when they run, they have the paths.
Yeah. But so I was looking at this and it does seem like very difficult to have happened without him like knowing he had gone down a different path. And then
and it was a lot of daylight too that he was
exactly
descending. So he would have like looked out and noticed, right?
Right. And so he's now, this is the morning, he's at Goddard's shelter and he follows the signs basically back up to Bald Mountain and then back down to his car. While he's walking back towards Bald Mountain, which would, if he had gone on the wrong path, this would be the path that he accidentally walked down the day before.
Yeah.
He's like, I have never seen this before. There are massive fallen trees on this trail that he has to walk back up to go to Bald Mountain. And he's like, I didn't pass these yesterday. Like you would know, you would remember big fallen trees.
Yeah.
Like one small one.
And it's not
one,
like there was a huge storm. It was just fog.
So he's so confused because he really doesn't understand how this happened. And he's like trying to understand and rationalize in his head, like, did I walk down the wrong path? Did I stumble down a side trail that connected me to something different?
Right.
He's like, I don't think so. But how else do you explain what happened? So finally, he gets back to his car at around 11:30 a.m. now after hiking some like 7 or 8 extra miles. And after not sleeping at all, he finally sees hope and freedom. He exited the woods. And I like to say he evaded his capturer because the woods nearly captured him. And he collided with the police who had spent the morning searching for him with canines who apparently had his scent. They like had Robert scent.
Oh, interesting.
But like it stopped.
Another spooky little thing.
Which happened in a lot of the disappearances where they would follow the trail of the scent and then just gone, no more scent.
That also comes up a lot in Bigfoot disappearances
Yeah.
Where little kids are held by the hairy man and brought somewhere else before they're found. Okay, yeah, that's weird. And this does make me, I know that last episode I like made a joke about Outlander, but it does kind of feel like that, where there's just like some, you don't even know you're walking through it or on top of it, but you just, boom, you're somewhere else for a moment and it just shoots you into another direction.
Right. I don't get it. So the man who found him said that aside from being cold, wet, and hungry, Singley was in good health and did not require medical treatment. But Robert Singley was so in shock and still so confused. To this day, he acknowledges that, sure, maybe he went off some side trail and got lost, but like everything else that adds up, he's like, I think something else happened, something that I don't understand. There were too many things, like too many shifts of energy in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And too many things that didn't align with what he had seen previously that made him feel like the woods was playing tricks on him.
This is also reminding me, and I cannot remember where I saw this, but it was a long time ago. I watched a story of a man who I think multiple people had watched him walking through a field and then suddenly just vanish and disappear. And when they went over to the place where he had disappeared, there was like a big, like burnt clearing almost, and he was never found again. And so that was like this weird mystery. But it does make me think like there are weird portals that you don't know sometimes that you could be walking into. And I'm probably totally misremembering this part of the story, and I might be adding it because of what you just told me. But I do think that there was something about like a thunderstorm or like lightning or something in the area. But like, again, like a weird energetic shift.
Yeah. We need to do another Glitch in the Matrix episode.
Yeah.
And you all need to send us your weird glitches that have happened.
Please.
They could be tiny. Like I saw on TikTok this morning, someone was cleaning out their closet and they found 2 identical shirts. She was like, I don't own 2 of these. And the tag, the way that she had ripped the tag out is the same in both of them. And everyone was joking that like other universe you is like desperately searching for her shirt. Yeah. Little things like that. And then big things like you feel like you went through a different timeline and your family and friends are acting differently towards you.
Yeah. What are we?
What are we? I don't understand it.
I know.
And neither does Robert Singley. He's like, I don't know, but I survived. So I guess like I should just be grateful for that. So the question is, was he a near victim of the Bennington Triangle, or did he simply get lost? There's just so much that happened in his experience that makes me wonder if perhaps he stepped briefly into an alternate dimension and only luck allowed him to escape. The mystery of the Bennington Triangle does continue, and disappearances are not the only thing to be afraid of. Should you dare enter the haunting woods, you should also beware of UFOs, monsters, and murderers. Because yes, as we can tell, the Bennington Triangle is a treacherous terrain, perhaps the perfect place for a murderer on the loose to hide.
Yeah.
Again, this reminds me of God of the Woods so much because back in the 1800s, the towns of Bennington and Glastenbury were really like focusing on driving business. They were trying to get charters to build a railroad and have like mining and mills and all these things built. In order to build all of those things, they had to bring in what they called jobbers. So people who would come to the area, basically live on a camp and build the railroad, build mills. 1864, they got a charter to build a railroad and they brought a lot of jobbers in. Men relocated to the area in search of jobs. One such man was by the name of Henry McDowell. He was a 38-year-old mill worker, and I think he moved out there in like the 1880s, late 1880s, early 1890s. On April 4th, 1892, Henry began hearing voices in his head. Actually, it's not clear when he began hearing voices in his head, but the voices on this day were particularly loud, and they were telling him, kill, kill. He could not silence them. So that night after work, he went to silence the voices with some alcohol, which, as you can imagine, didn't work very well.
Patricia Arquette tried the same thing with ghosts and
didn't do
she was still the medium.
That evening, while under the influence, Henry McDowell got into a heated argument with a fellow jobber whose name was John Crowley. Crowley claimed to be the boss of this place, and those voices in McDowell's head got louder. Kill. So McDowell grabbed a sled stake and bludgeoned John Crowley to death. Covered in blood, Henry McDowell fled to Connecticut, and I think he committed a couple other crimes and was then apprehended by police. While in custody, he confessed to the murder and cried of the voices in his head that were plaguing him and would not leave him alone. So he was sent back to Vermont, to the Vermont State Asylum, which was nearly 120 miles away from Bennington, Vermont. Sometime later, and the specifics of this are not clear, but Henry McDowell escaped from the asylum, taking refuge and hiding in a railroad car filled with coal that stopped in Bennington, Vermont. It is said that he then got off the train and disappeared into the woods, and people believe that he set up camp and lived in the Bennington woods, the Triangle area.
I mean, great place. What is the population again? 9?
Yeah. 6, I think. Yeah. People claim that McDowell set up camp in the Bennington woods, which is now part of what we call the Bennington Triangle, forever listening to the voices in his head. Some even believe that he, to this day, still roams those woods, haunting, hunting, forever a part of the danger in those mountains. 5 years after McDowell brutally murdered John Crowley, on September 30th, 1897, a man named John Harbour was mysteriously murdered in the woods south of Glastenbury Mountain. He had been out hunting with one of his brothers when they briefly separated, and moments later, John's brother heard a gunshot followed by John screaming in pain. John's brother and family, whoever was in the area, start running into the woods towards the sound of John's screams, but they cannot find him. They had separated for moments, not long. So they're we should be able to find him, especially if they're following his sounds.
Right.
They cannot find him until the next morning. They find him, I think, miles away from where they last were. He is discovered under a tree. He's deceased. His gun propped up next to him. He was discovered far from where they had been hunting the day before, and there were no clues ever found. His death remains a mystery.
Do we know how he died?
I think by a gunshot wound.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if this was a Bigfoot thing where he's shooting to try to at the predator.
I think it was by a gunshot wound, but there's just no clues or anything that was ever found.
And to be moved so far.
I know.
And to be moved so quickly.
I know.
Where other people who are running.
Right.
They're
hearing him scream, but they can't find him. So some people are and this goes back to part 1 where people are is there some serial killer that is roaming the area and hunting people down? Other people are is Henry McDowell still hunting people in the woods and murdering people? Is this some Bennington Triangle alternate universe thing that's happening? I don't know. To this day, people have claimed to hear mysterious sounds, screams, groans, voices in the woods, and no one really knows where they're coming from. But it's like the woods hold the memory of the past, or perhaps are keeping the souls of the deceased. And because the mysteries of the Bennington Triangle never end, here is another that blows my mind. And this one might just be a legend in Vermont that multiple people have adopted, because you actually covered it in episode 211, which was the frozen people of Vermont.
Oh, yeah.
So this story, I don't know that it's necessarily associated with Bennington Triangle, but there are some people who say it is. But there's a story of a man who was traveling through the Bennington Triangle area in 1940 when he came across a group of mountaineers who lived in the mountain, and he joined them for the evening. They invited him in for food and shelter for the night. And he's like, how do you live here all year round? It seems like a really hard place to survive. And they let him in on a little secret that they freeze the elderly during the cold months.
Yeah, they couldn't carry their weight, and so they just froze them, thawed them out in the spring.
Exactly.
Fed them again.
So surprised and intrigued, obviously, he asked, how do you do that? They said they would do one better. They would show him. So this traveler watched as they drugged 4 men and 2 women, stripped them naked, left them outside to freeze, and once their vital signs faded, they placed them inside wooden boxes, nailed them shut, and buried them under the snow. They told the traveler, do not worry. All 6 of these people will be reawoken in the spring. Why don't you come back and see for yourself? So, of course, this man goes on his way, comes back sometime in the spring, and I think it's May now.
Which is also very daring of him in this legend, because after witnessing that, I'm well, I got out with my life. So do I really need to go back? What if they end up killing me in some ritual or drugging me?
Be a good way to die, I guess.
Being drugged and frozen to death?
It's interesting. So he goes back, and according to the story, it's May 10th. He returns to find all 6 people alive, revived. But again, I think it's a legend that's been adopted, exaggerated, and kind of like transplanted in a bunch of different areas.
Yeah. And in the episode, we went through a lot of the like theories and newspaper articles and people who maybe were embellishing.
Yes. But given how many things do happen in the Bennington Triangle, I wouldn't be surprised. And that's also why I'm not surprised that there is a Bigfoot-like monster in the Bennington Triangle.
What I was waiting for.
It is called the Bennington Monster. And I found this photo that someone created, and I want to find the artist so I can tag them. But it is the coolest piece of art that is indicative of the Bennington Triangle. Look at it. It's everything. It has the man-eating stone. It has like the bus where the one man disappeared off of. There's a Bigfoot. There's a UFO abducting a cow, which is so Vermont.
It's so Vermont.
And it's all in a triangle.
In the woods.
Love it. In the woods. Yeah. So for more than 2 centuries, people have been having numerous sightings of a Bigfoot-like creature in the Glastenbury Mountain area for 2 centuries. The sightings date back to the early 1800s when apparently a stagecoach full of passengers had to stop in the Glastenbury area because the road was flooded. So the driver of the stagecoach gets out and he's like surveying the road and like looking at the damage, like how do we get through this? When he notices these like really massive footprints in the mud. And he's like, no human could have made these. These are huge. Just as he's examining them, something runs out of the forest and knocks the stagecoach down on its side and then flees back into the woods.
Oh my God.
Luckily,
Bigfoots are like kind of bullies.
Right. Yes, aggressive.
But like skittish bullies.
Yeah, they're like
it's
attack
like a
and
classic
then run.
territorial thing where like you see it in grizzly bears where it's like attack and retreat, attack and retreat.
Just like let people know that you could hurt them if you wanted.
Yeah.
Luckily, no one's hurt. But everyone's like, what the fuck just happened? And as they're kind of reviewing what happened, multiple people say that they saw were these like 2 massive, like angry looking eyes coming out of the woods before they were flipped. Other people reported seeing like a hairy, massive beast. And this was the first sighting. Oh, they also said that it towered over the stagecoach, was like surely more than 6 or 7 feet tall. And then if you remember the missing person story I shared last week about Carl Herrick, who was the one who was found squeezed to death, and there was like no further investigation really.
Right.
People theorized that maybe he encountered the Bennington Monster, the Bigfoot, and that who had squeezed him to death. Then in September 2003, a man named Ray Dufresne was driving north on Route 7 between Bennington and Manchester when he saw something moving in his peripheral vision. To his right, something big, black and hairy, was walking strangely in the desert. It had long, hairy arms and a massive body. Ray himself had been called many of these things before because he was a big man. He was 220 pounds, but he was like, whatever I am seeing is much bigger than me.
And black fur. How interesting.
He was like, this was certainly over 300 pounds, much taller than 6 feet, and much beefier than he. Quickly, he lost sight of the being as it moved into the woods, heading toward the Glastenbury Mountain. He could hardly believe what he was seeing, and he like tried to slow down his car and stop to see it, but by the time he had done that, it had disappeared into the woods. So he's just like, what was that? That was odd. What's even more odd and even more convincing is that that very same week, 3 other people had sightings of the same entity separately. 2 of them was on the same day that Ray had seen it. These 2 women, so they were together in a car, witnessed a very similar creature. Sidel Wiltshire and Anne Morauke witnessed the Bennington Monster while together. It was a shared encounter, very similar to Ray. The being walked towards the woods and disappeared. Then a writer named Doug Dorst was driving to Bennington College that same week and saw a similar beast on the edge of the woods. Again, briefly saw it, and it disappeared into the woods. So many sightings of the Bennington Monster, Bigfoot-like creature, but the Bennington Monster does not lurk in these woods alone. There are reports of aliens, strange lights, unexplainable noises, a graveyard that glows at night, and so much more. There are also countless Reddit threads of people who have had experiences in the Bennington Triangle, and there was one story about the ghost towns in the area that when you visit them, because they are abandoned, they're ghost towns, and step into the town, all sound disappears. No birds, no wind, nothing. But the second you step out of it, all of the ecosystem returns.
So weird.
So spooky. Then there was a man, Joe Notbush, who posted something 3 years ago. And this might be nothing, but I thought, let's share it. He shared that he and his friends were staying at the Melville shelter, and they were in their shelter around dusk when all of them stopped because they noticed these like giant rabbits outside of the shelter, and they were almost like performing. He said that they like kind of were like hopping around, but like looking towards them almost as if wanting to get their attention, almost wanting them to follow them. And all of him and his friends were just staring. They all noted that these rabbits were like 50 pounds. They're big boys, which is unusual.
Is that possible?
I don't know. I don't know enough about wild rabbits, but they all felt extremely weird. So like they noted that before even seeing what was outside, they all like got a weird feeling. And that's when they went to look outside and saw these entities. Rabbits, creatures, baby Bigfoots, I don't know. And
wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, they're like the newborns. So they stared at them until these rabbits like finally gave up and like disappeared into the woods.
They gave up? You didn't follow them?
Would you?
I don't know.
Like Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. I don't really want to experience that.
Well, because they were so, if they were normal sized, yes. But because they were so huge, I probably would also be like, what's going on?
I don't like this. Especially accompanied by the unsettling feeling.
Right.
No, stay inside.
That would haunt me forever.
Not
knowing what
right. So that's why the man had to go back to the frozen people in May, because it's like he would.
Right. You have to know. Got to risk your life.
Yeah. So as we come to a conclusion of this episode and this two-parter, I think we're left with a couple of big questions. Mostly, what the fuck? What is happening in the Bennington Triangle?
Yeah.
Are people disappearing into wormholes after stepping on a man-eating stone? Are there portals to other dimensions? Are there aliens? Is it Bigfoot terrain? Are there ghosts of murderers lurking in the trees? Are there serial killers? Is the land cursed? We can say that something otherworldly is happening and awaiting those who enter the Bennington Triangle and the greater Appalachia Mountains. These are no ordinary forests, and entering them does not guarantee a safe voyage home. And to conclude, last week I told everyone like the author of The Haunting of Hill House also wrote a book based on the disappearances in Glastenbury. I have the name of it. It's called Hangs a Man by Shirley Jackson.
You know, there's a slogan in Vermont. It's Keep Vermont Weird. And I always thought it was just maybe about Vermonters. But now I'm realizing that it's probably just about the place itself.
It's all of it.
It's all of it. Wow. The Bigfoot stuff is weird because for it to be so prevalent and like letting itself be seen, it does make me think back to the whole interdimensional portal hopping theory behind Bigfoots. Because if it was so brazen in this like 3-day period or whatever it was, why wouldn't it be seen outside of that? Other than it was just popping in some portal that these people keep accidentally disappearing into. Yeah. But the Bigfoots know how to move about.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like so many places that have stories of Bigfoot sightings also have these stories of mysterious disappearances.
And so that's why people are like, oh, is it a cave system? Is it this or that? But like, no, portals, man. It's portals.
If you had an opportunity to enter into another dimension and never come back to this one, would you do it?
No, because I know nothing about the other one. The risk assessment part of me says, no, what if that one has dinosaurs? Yeah, but that's 2 hours
but that's my
until
other
you
question.
Get eaten alive and then you're dead forever. You never get to be in that portal for very long.
Again, another cool way to die. Sure. This is it's so difficult because we really don't know much, but like all of the stories we have read of people, listeners included, we've read one that like she went through a weird thing and definitely believes that she went through a different dimension because like things are different in this one. It's like everything we know and have heard leads me to believe that everything's just like slightly skewed.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. But what if there are like, do you have to keep going through portals to get to one that's even weirder? Or are they all just slightly skewed?
I don't know, but you might already be in all of those. It's just your present self.
So I'd have to swap places.
Yeah. Or you would have to kill yourself, kill a version of yourself in another dimension in order to take over at that. I don't know.
And also the universe is infinite. So think about how, this is like one of those high conversations, I apologize. But like truly, possibilities are endless. There is a chance that there is a replica of Earth somewhere in the far distant in the universe.
Yeah.
And we are literally living the exact same mirror image of this.
Well, that's honestly what I'm more curious about, even beyond like dimensions.
Yeah.
I'm so curious just about like this timeline, this specific dimension, what else is in space? What else is happening?
Right. We only know what's happening right here in this room. And even still, I'm limited to what's happening in my
Your
head.
own perception of what's happening.
I don't even know what's happening in your perception.
And like the fact that the brain named itself, so weird.
You also got me down a rabbit hole recently about the CIA code for like pain.
Yeah.
Like 55515, something like that.
I know, right? Because it's all a simulation and we're just in a glitch. But are we? I don't know.
And if you don't know, there is a declassified CIA document that has like a number sequence that if you repeat is supposed to block out pain.
Right. So they teach it to, or at least in this one project, they taught it to CIA agents so that if they were like captured as a prisoner of war or whatever and were being tortured, they could implement this technique to, I guess, like lessen the chances of them talking and divulging government secrets. And I did attempt it very briefly when giving birth, and it did not work for me.
And then you got an epidural.
But I got an epidural, and that certainly did. And then I had emergency C-section, so it doesn't even matter. Okay, wait, can I tell you one other thing?
Of course.
For Blink, I've been interviewing like a ton of different doctors and people, but there's one doctor that I interviewed recently, and I'll probably include bits of this in the actual episode on Blink, but he was talking about how they are currently working to try to create, this feels like woo-woo because I'm like, how the fuck do you even create this? They are currently working to try to create a way for people who are nonverbal, specifically like if you think of Jake who was like in a coma and couldn't move his eyes or do anything to communicate but was trapped in his own body, to somehow like implant or do something in the brain to like translate thoughts into speech. And he's telling me all this and I immediately was like, well, how do you differentiate a thought with intention?
Right.
To like just an intrusive thought or just like some random like internal monologue.
The reason I don't say it all out loud is because you don't want to hear all of my thoughts.
And he was like, well, that's one of the things that we have to think about. And I was like, honestly, that sounds more nightmarish to me. Like everything you ever think coming out onto a computer to everyone around you.
That's also a question with telepathy. If telepathy is possible, how do you safeguard what you want to communicate to people and what is like a private, intimate thought?
Right.
Does privacy even exist? Or do we become a better world and community because no thought is private? So you can't do things without like everyone knowing.
Yeah. Or is it just like, it's just so normal that the emotion of it is removed and there's no, I don't know, reaction to thoughts like that. It just exists as it is. I have a listener email and I'll read it now. God.
There was no transition. We just had to pivot.
How do you get off that conversation? I don't know. We have an email from a Vermonter called Girl Died in Vermont Home and My Family Bought the House.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies. I am
evening.
Aubrey, a New England photographer and ESOL, English as a Second Language, advisor and educator. I also love to write, so you're in for a recollection of classic haunted home stories.
Yes.
I've been hesitant to share this story with you both, as remembering it has induced reoccurring nightmares that I thought were once and for all put to bed, but alas.
Sorry.
I know. Thanks for being brave and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
When I was 7, my family packed our bags in Oakland, Tennessee, and we hit the road to Vermont to be closer to my grandmother in Massachusetts. My family was poor as fuck, so my parents had to find a house that was big enough for them, myself, and 4 siblings, but also something very cheap. If you haven't heard of Barnard, Vermont, it's the town next to Woodstock, and it's one of the most historical towns in Vermont.
Ooh.
That is where my family bought the home.
You've probably driven past there.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I felt very alone in all of the experiences here. I felt that there was another person there, someone wallowing and waiting, but not harmful. The first experience I had was when I was writing in my journal with invisible ink. Of course, because if you know, you know. And the stuffed animal on my bay window fell over. Oddly, no wind or open windows, so I put it back up and I continue writing. And then 2 stuffed animals fall. Startled now, I put them back up and I get into bed underneath the covers. But when I look out, all 10 to 15 of my stuffed animals have fallen onto the floor.
Something is trying to get your attention. My goodness.
It looked as if someone took one arm and just swiped them off of the windowsill. I often played board games alone, and I always felt like my imaginary friend was actually real and really there with me.
Because they were. They definitely were.
I felt someone across the board with me, and intuitively, I would move the pieces of the board game in a way that I felt my imaginary friend wanted, like an unwavering hand guiding me play by play. Some nights, I would see a green glowing face on my ceiling. It was childlike, but it would be screaming.
Oh.
I would get up in a sweat and I would go and sleep in my parents' room. One night, it was so much that I just could not be in the upstairs part of the house, so I went to go sleep on the couch downstairs. But I barely slept. I woke up with the sun, and in my state of waking up, the door to the basement opens, and clear as day, there is a little girl about my age, and she walks out and she waves at me. I sit up, I rub my eyes, and there she is, blonde, short bob, bangs, a black sparkly turtleneck, bootcut, dark wash jeans. She then walked out the front door and disappeared. I was horrified, astonished, scared, terrifyingly spooked within the span of 10 seconds.
Yeah, the like thought processes that are going on, like what the fuck?
Right? You're like, wait, am I still dreaming or did I actually wake up on this couch? I was walking home one day from the bus stop and I took a shortcut through the backyard. And once I reached my house's tree line, I felt like someone was there walking next to me now. I can literally feel it as I type it. Like when someone is walking next to you and you just barely brush arms. I began to jog and then I began to full on sprint and I eventually face planted by tripping on something in the long grass. That feeling really shook me, and so I never took that shortcut again. Years later, after we moved, I addressed this with my dad because I started having some nightmares. Always the same. I'm in the house. I'm forced to go upstairs. The house is empty. I'm forced to go in the closet by someone, or maybe by a feeling. I'm overwhelmed by the same horror from years prior.
Oh no.
My dad tells me that we were very poor. We were able to buy the house because the previous owner had a child, a little girl, who had died in this house.
Oh my gosh.
Without giving every detail of her, he told me that he would wake up to a little blonde girl next to his bed screaming, or sometimes just watching, and she would leave a few seconds later. He also informed me that the backyard of our house was Native American land. It was not just land, but reservation land where a mass graveyard had been detected. Homes are not allowed to be built on it. And the long grass covered the mark of this mass graveyard, the one I tripped on.
Oh?
I will never forget this house or what lurked in and around it.
How did the little girl die?
I don't know.
That's so sad.
She said, I've searched the world for an article on this little girl who passed away, but there is nothing. There's also nothing on or about this specific road, and Google Maps will not allow you to even continue up the road. It's all very strange.
I feel like you got to go to the historical society or local
town archives.
Yeah.
I feel like when we were doing our Conjuring research, we were lucky in that like the Rhode Island Historical Society had so much, but I feel like in Vermont, like I remember my little library was where you went for like the town history, which is like, it's so limited.
Right. Even like Marblehead, clearly there's so much history with the house that I live in, built in 1767, but there's 2 documents at the Historical Society. Yeah.
People weren't thinking about the future, but like, are we? We're not documenting things about our house.
We're podcasting.
That's true.
But we're not doing it for the future. We're doing it for the present.
Yeah. And then like what a nightmare for archivists in the future to like go through.
There's too much now.
Thousands of hours of us talking just to get little bits and pieces of like the history of one single place.
And like all of my Facebook statuses where it was like, Sabrina is sick. Sabrina is tired.
Sabrina is listening to Kesha.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thank you guys for the thrilling content and somehow peaceful drives that you've granted me. Stay spooky, Aubrey.
Wow. I'm also so sad that this is like haunting Aubrey and giving her nightmares because it does sound like this girl was her friend and really was lonely, and there's a sweetness and a tenderness to them playing games together.
Yeah.
And her appearing and waving and then disappearing. But the screaming, this poor girl.
The screaming. Well, and it also disturbs me the fact that Aubrey in her dream is either feeling like someone is sticking her in the closet or she has the feeling that she needs to hide in the closet. Because that makes me think that something
happened to the girl.
Because she died in the house. But like, was she killed in the house? Was she fearful in this house? Like, what happened to her where it's almost like Aubrey has this memory that doesn't belong to her. It belongs to the little girl who felt the need or was quickly ushered to the closet to hide for hopeful safety.
I've been watching this show that there's like a couple seasons of it on Hulu. It's called Evil Lives Here. It's pretty horrific. But like a lot of the stories are of women whose partners ended up being like serial killers or just like really, really violent, killing other people while being in relationships with them.
Interesting.
It's a very dark, depressing show. But it kind of reminds me of this, where it's like these people were tormented by someone they loved.
Did they know that they were killers at the time?
Every episode's a different story. So like there's one where the husband seemed loving and kind and then like slowly started to show the colors. And then she escaped him. And then it was like a couple years later, he was arrested for like assaulting 2 girls. And then it later came out that he had murdered like 6 people and buried them in her backyard. Like literally they had a child and the guy had dug in the backyard and built a sand pit for their son.
The sandbox.
Yeah, but it was literally an excuse to bury the bodies and cover them. So her kid was playing in the sandbox. It's so like horrifying.
I hope that child never finds out. I mean, they will because there's a show now.
Yeah.
But holy shit.
I know.
God.
Horrible.
Sorry, this is like one more quick little story like that. This is reminding me of, there were these 2 twin women who they each married like a serial killer. Like they knew that these people were killers, like married them in jail. And then when they came out of jail, these 2 twin women were like eventually murdered very gruesomely by their partners that they felt that, it's.
People are awful.
The human brain is also weird.
Did you hear that there's like a potential serial killer in New England?
Yeah, it's confusing because it's like all of these remains have been found. And so they're like, oh my God, there's a serial killer in New England. And it's like they're trying to connect it to all of the ones that feel like the smiley face killer. And I think that they're completely separate, but they're trying to loop them all together. And of course, the police are saying, no, that's not true, which they said exactly about the smiley face killer stuff, which it's like, first, okay, well, then explain why these people who all fit the same description are all disappearing in the same way and washing to shore.
Yeah.
It like found dead in a body of water. Like how is there a same MO and same type of...
I think they're probably saying that, 1, to not induce panic in like the society, and then 2, to like not show all their cards in terms of their investigation.
You've had a lot of years, so figure it the fuck out.
If you're the serial killer and you're listening to this, turn yourself in. I feel like we're chit-chatting so much right now, but it's the end of the episode. So if you don't want to listen, you can
then you're not even here
Then you don't
anymore.
have to be here anymore. But someone was talking about how they use ChatGPT to like do a past life reading. And
what?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I want to know more about this.
What do the robots know about us? We should try that.
We should.
We should also I've been seeing the trend. I meant to try it last night, but as you know, I've been a little extra sleepy at nights. But there's a trend where you can ask AI to create like a Barbie or doll version of you.
Yeah.
And I want to do it for us.
We should do that. Yeah. Okay, let's do it. We'll end up doing it like 3 months after the trend. People are like, you guys are so behind.
Someone else can do it for us.
Yes. Yeah, please. That'd be fun. That helps.
You know more about us than we know about ourselves.
You know what else you can do for us is email us your encounters, your ghost stories, your odd, unusual things, your glitches in the Matrix. We're still asking for your Bigfoot calls. We have yet to receive more than one. So get your phone out and hoot,
hoot, and holler, holler.
Yeah. Bigfoot your way to our inbox, 2girlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Jamie for editing and producing this episode and this whole podcast. We appreciate you.
If you want episodes ad-free and 1 week early, or if you want to join our book club and get bonus content, and also join us on Campfire Stories, which is live every Tuesday, where you can share your ghost stories with us on the virtual Zoom stage. Join us on Patreon. You get all of that, all of those bonuses for $5 a month, plus more.
We love you, and we will see you on the other side.
Or in another dimension.